like that, right? So let's cover few important components in AWS called security group, EIP, elastic IP address, and what is system check, system status checks. Okay, right. So we'll discuss that in today's session. Okay, yeah. So let me connect to AWS account. So aws.amazon.com. Let me sign into the console. Let me sign into the console. So let me go to EC2. Okay. So I don't have any EC2 instance currently. Please make sure, guys. Please make sure whether you are deleting or not your servers. Okay. So right, and also how to create a support request or support ticket if you have any issues, right, in any one of the service. How to check with AWS if, right, if it is AWS level or at your application side. So we will discuss today the few components, few services of AWS Security Group, EIP, nothing but elastic IP address, and system checks, system status checks, and how to create a support ticket with AWS. So I just connected to the AWS account. I'm in the region of Mumbai. So Mumbai having code US AP South 1. And right, this is the account. So AWS account ID will be 12 digits. You can see the 12 digits, right? And here you can see the view. If you want dark view, if you want light view, you can, okay. And this is related to, right, the support requests you will create, the support tickets you will create here. And this is the notifications. If any maintenance is going on from AWS side, you can see the notifications here in this. Okay. So for example, if any one of the reason, let's start with the support ticket or support request, how to create with AWS. So you have to go to this support center. Okay, this support center. So in support center, you have a option account and billing. If you have any issues with account and billing, you can go with this. And if you have any issues with the right, technical, you can select here and you have to click on create case. So whenever whenever you click on, whenever you click on the, whenever you click, right, whenever you click on the create case, right, so it will ask you whether which type of case you want, whether it's account and billing or whether technical case. So account and billing related issues, right, you have to select the service in account. And but that particular service, if you have any billing related issues, right, so you can select. And technical, like if you have any issues with EC2, right, right, so you have to select and you have to create. So in this case, this is my free tier account, right? I don't have anything options, but uh, let me show that, right, right, you will see like this. You have to select the particular service, and in that case, refund request, software launch issue, right, you can click on next. So you have to summarize your issue, your provide subject, you have to provide your subject. And for example, some EC2 not working, and they will ask few more details like EC2 ID, instance ID, like that. And you have to check with the team in, right, whether chart option also there. If it is a free tier account, you cannot see the chart option. But in case of the billable account, right, so not a free tier account, you can see that chart options. If you click on submit, so AWS support team, right, anyone from support team will join within 2 to 3 minutes, okay, within that chart. Or if you mention the email, so they will email you. Okay, so where you will find all these, right? So first of all, you need to go to the support center. Okay, so if you have opened any cases, you can see your cases. in the active cases section. If AWS closed those cases, you can see, right? You can see that. Okay. So this is how the options will be. So where you will find out, here you can see that, right? So that is about the support request. So let's understand about EIP. So elastic IP address. So what is EIP in AWS? So, right, you have to, for example, let me create a EC2 instance. If I go to instances, if I click on launch instance, the server, the name is server, number of servers are one. I want to create Amazon Linux, 1 GB RAM. I will go with existing key pair, and I will go with the networking settings, same, 8 GB, launch. If you see that my instance getting created, getting created. So this is the server. If you see that, if I refresh, it is in pending state. It will come to running. But if you see, this is the public IP. What is the IP address? This is the public IP. Public. So public IP will be helpful to access it from any location. If your server is here, if you want to connect to that server, it should have a public IP. If you want to connect from other location or other network, it should have a public IP. The public IP is mandatory. Okay, so to connect to a server, for example, so right, this is the public IP, and you will link these IPs to your website. For example, www.someknowledgemateit.com. You link these IPs to your, for example, let me open command prompt. Let me open that. So let me check ns lookup. ns lookup. Okay. So for example, ns lookup facebook.com. So Facebook is running inside this server, 172.80, and this one also. Okay, Facebook running on two servers, 157, 240, 192, 35. So they linked this IP with this website name. Okay. Similarly, if I want to run this some knowledge metadata website, I need to link to a public IP. Okay. So if I linked a public IP, okay, so it's this IP should be stayed, right, for a long time, right? But for example, this IP, the public IPs of AWS are, right, are will be changeable, not stable. If I stop and start the server, if I stop and start the server, what will happen? What will? If you see that, right, it is stopped. What is the public IP? It is disabled, right? So if, for example, if I take my server, if I start it, what will happen? Right, if I started, what will happen? So it will give us a new IP. If you see earlier, what is the IP I saved already? This is the IP. What about after stop and start? After stop and start, you will get a new IP from the AWS. These are not permanent. Okay, the public IPs are not permanent. If you see, let's wait. So this is the another IP. So what is the IP earlier? Before stop and start, this is the IP. After stop and start, right? This is before. This is after stop and start. Right. So right. So we have, right. So this is before and this is after stop and start. Right. So but the thing is, right. But the thing is, we need to have a permanent IP if you link to any website. But how we will get a permanent IP? There is a service, there is a component called elastic IP address. Elastic IP address. You can see that here, elastic IP. It's a EC2 feature. If you click on, if you see there is no elastic IP, and guys, these elastic IPs are not free. These elastic IPs are not free. If I click on elastic IP, allocate elastic IP, it is getting generated in AP South 1 availability, right? The region. And let me allocate. This is the elastic IP. This IP is permanent. This IP is permanent. So we will call it as EIP. So if you want to allocate this EIP to any server, select it, go to actions, associate to your server and associate. So now it is getting associated. And what is your IP address? If you refresh, IP is changed. It is changed to your elastic IP. Now if you stop and start, this IP will be long, stay long time. It will not get changed because this is elastic IP address. This is elastic IP address, right? So support ticket will be two types, account and billing, and another one is technical, right? So right. So can you just observe that if you see it is stopped, IP same. If I start, IP will be the same. Okay, let's see, observe that, right? It is not removed because it is stay long time. Okay, stay a long time. So just notice one, we will discuss about status checks. Okay, just take your time. I will give some 2 to 3 minutes. Just note this one. Okay. Okay, fine. So let's see that. Okay, security group first, and then we will see what about status checks. Okay, security group. Security. So if you created any server, for example, this is a server. Okay, so if you want to connect to it, like in our home, right, there is a door, right? It's like a right the mediator. So to who, right, it will allow some person, it will, right, if you close the door, no one will allow, right, no one will come, right? So similarly, so there is a security group in EC2 instance in its AWS. The security group will act as a firewall, will act as a firewall. Okay, so this firewall, okay, this security group, it's a firewall, so which helps full, right, which helps full to manage the inbound, that means incoming to the server, inbound called incoming, outbound called outgoing, outbound called outgoing. So inbound and outbound rules. Okay, outgoing. That means, so if you want to connect to a server, it should allow a incoming rule. If it is a Linux server, the incoming rule should be open called 22, called SSH port. If it is a Windows server, 3389, called RDP port, remote desktop port. So the inbound rule should be opened. Okay, if you want to connect to a EC2 instance, right? So and this, right, this is outgoing. For example, from this server, if you want to connect to any other server, okay, for example, it's a the server called SBI server. If you want to purchase some item from your server, at the time you are providing credential, the credit card details, it should connect to SBI server, right? It should outgoing, right? We'll call it as outbound. Okay, so outbound rule. Okay, we'll call it incoming, we'll call outgoing. So if you see in AWS, this is my EC2 instance. Which instance it is? A Linux server, right? I have taken a Amazon Linux server, right? So Linux platform, right? So if I go to security group, This is a security group which I created at the time of creating a server. So which port is open by default? 22, because it's a Linux. Okay, by default, right? If you click on the security group, each thing in AWS have their own unique ID. We'll call, right? If this is security group ID. This is security group name. Okay, and if you see, this security group inbound rule. Which port is open? 22. Here 0.0.0 is nothing but, right? 0.0.0 is nothing but allowing all, okay, over the world, all over the globe, right? So, right, these are outgoing rules. Why all the ports are open at outbound? So we don't know, right? So outside, right, the SBA server port number or a Facebook server or any other server, we don't know the port number, right? So where they open, right? So I mean, if any case, right? So we are going with this, right? Uh, the outgoing. So I currently I'm using existing security group, okay? And for example, right, if you want to delete your security groups, here also you can see 34 security groups. You can select it, right? So whatever you want, you can simply take it and you can simply delete it. Select that actions, delete. Similarly, delete your Elastic IP also. Select the Elastic IP address. First, remove it from the AWS server, deassociate. Once it is deassociated, you can simply release back to the AWS. It should be released, okay? It should be released to AWS. Not only deassociate is, right? Not only deassociation, you should release it to AWS to back it, okay? So now AWS will give one more IP address, you can see, right? So after releasing, this is Elastic IP. After releasing another one more IP, right? This is after releasing EIP. Okay, yeah, right. So it is not a thing when you will get another same IP every time. So for example, this is first one. Does it get the same IP again? It's 1,000, right? The percent it will not come again. Okay, maybe we don't know. Okay, so but Elastic IPs are permanent. The security groups are the security groups will act as a firewall. So could you please draw this diagram? Could you please draw this one? Okay, draw the diagram. Okay, so we will see what is status checks. Just note down. So status checks. So if you observe that, so here you have the server which is having 2 by 2 checks are passed, right? So if you observe here also, if you go to status, you can see 2 by 2 checks are passed. One is at system level checks, another one is instance level checks. Okay. So when we discussed in initially AWS data center, there we have larger servers like this. Okay. So take anyone, right? Larger servers. So someone may, right, the AWS team are managing these servers, okay, like this, right? So consider you have a server, this is for example some 1 TB server, okay, 1 TB RAM, okay. So within that you will create a EC2 instance, some 1 GB, you're getting some space within that, right? AWS giving some space for you, right? So we will call this 1 TB RAM server is nothing but a host server or a system, okay. This one we'll call it as a instance, right? Instance, right? So instance, right? We'll call it as a instance, okay. This is 1 GB RAM, this is instance, this is a host or a system, right? Here two checks, one is system level checks, that means this 1 TB RAM server is properly connected to a storage, to a network, right? So which is properly connected. Whenever you create a launch a server, if it will check the first system reachability status check. If it is passed, it will do the instance status check. That means the server is properly clustered in the main 1 TB RAM server or not. Whether it is have a good network connectivity, good storage connectivity to this, right? to this storage and to this network, right? So it will check the instance level. So in some cases, you will observe that instance check failed, instance check failed like this. Okay, instance reachability check failed, right? Or the both are failed. Okay, so you will observe like that. So what you have to do at that time? Okay, you might need to reboot your server. What will happen? AWS, if it is host level issue, if this host is having some issue, AWS will move your server to another healthy host. Okay, if it is server level issue, you have to check some troubleshoot with some Linux commands. We'll discuss troubleshooting classes separately. And still you're facing issue, you have to create a support request. I already show you how to create a support request, right? So that is how the status checks, that is how the security EIP, right? Support request, you will do that. So what we will do, right? Right. So right, we'll understand few more interesting topics in coming days, right? So thank you. Please make sure you're releasing your components, like you're deleting your servers, right? So that's it for today. Okay.